There are villages that vanish from the map not because of war, nor because of natural disasters, but because of karma's retribution. People only whisper fragments of tales, half-believed stories lost in mist. But the truth is this: blood was spilled, souls once howled, and shadows still linger on that cursed land. Ngoc An, a village nestled quietly at the foot of the mountain, seemed tranquil, with green rice fields and children's laughter echoing in the wind. Yet behind that peace lay buried sins, restless spirits that had never been freed. Once the past was unearthed, karma would return, and no one could escape. Open Book Chapter 1. Ngoc An Village, Peace Before the Storm. Ngoc An was an ancient village tucked beneath the mountains, where mist lingered year-round. The red dirt road leading into the village felt like a severed path, cutting it away from the outside world. Strangers who came here often felt hundreds of unseen eyes watching them, though no one could explain why. On the surface, Ngoc An seemed as peaceful as any countryside hamlet: lush green fields, children chasing each other's laughter, and dogs barking at night amidst the chorus of insects. But behind that calm curtain lay secrets long buried in darkness. At the heart of the village stood an ancient stone slab, carved with faded Han characters few could read anymore. The elders said it was erected to suppress a vengeful spirit from centuries past. Children were strictly forbidden to touch it. Those who dared lay a hand upon the stone met with misfortune soon after. The main character, Kai, a young man returning home after years away, carried within him a hunger to uncover the truth about his birthplace. He was never one to believe in superstition, but on the very first night back, he awoke to the sound of drums echoing at midnight. The sound came from the village communal hall, yet no one had touched its drums for decades. Kai sat up, drenched in cold sweat. Each beat pounded like the frantic heart of a dying man, reverberating through the mountains. Yet by morning, when he asked around, the villagers all shook their heads. They had heard nothing. Up above, beneath the ashen sky, a flock of black crows circled the old kapok tree at the village gate. The oldest elder whispered with trembling lips, "Karma is returning." Open Book Chapter 2. The First Death, the Return of the Spirit. The morning after Kai's return, Ngoc An was shaken to its core. The villagers discovered the lifeless body of Luong, an old hunter, lying stiff by the stream. His eyes were wide open in terror, mouth frozen mid-scream, yet no sound had escaped his throat. His skin was pale, and across his chest were 5 deep claw marks, as if torn open by some beast. And yet, there were no animal tracks nearby, only a pool of water that shimmered red, like diluted blood. In its surface flickered the faint reflection of a woman with long hair veiling her face. But when the villagers gathered, the image dissolved, leaving only a suffocating air of dread. Whispers rose among them. Perhaps the sins of the past are coming due. Luong, he was part of that night, wasn't he? But when Kai pressed for answers, what night? Silence fell. Faces turned away, eyes clouded with fear. That night, Kai tossed sleeplessly. He remembered a childhood rumor of the night of blood at the kapok tree. His parents had forbidden him to ask about it, but the horror of Luong's death made the legend claw its way back into his mind. Driven by dread and curiosity, Kai ventured to the stream where the body was found. The water glimmered under the sickly moonlight, carrying a strange murkiness. Wind whistled through the mountains like a chorus of mourning. Then he saw it, a woman's silhouette beneath the kapok tree. Her hair hung down almost to the ground, her face hidden, one hand raised, pointing directly at him. Kai froze. The kapok tree swayed violently. Ropes creaked as though bearing the weight of the hang. Behind him, a white shadow flickered. A voice scraped through the night, thin and cold as steel on bone. Blood has yet to be repaid. Kai spun around. Nothing. Only darkness pressed against him. But at the tree's roots, something had gouged deep claw marks into the soil, as though the ground itself had been raked open by a demon's hand. Open Book Chapter 3. The Curse Buried in the Ancient Grave. After Luong's death, unease spread like a plague through Ngoc An. The oldest woman in the village, Madame Hugh, trembled as she muttered, "The retribution has begun. None of us can escape." Old memories resurfaced, whispered like poison. Decades ago, beneath the kapok tree, there had been an ancient grave. One stormy night, it was disturbed. The grave was said to hold the body of a young woman who had died unjustly, buried before her funeral rites could be performed. Instead of sending her spirit to rest, the villagers hastily sealed the coffin, burying their crime along with her. From that day on, misfortune plagued Ngoc An. Cattle died mysteriously. Children drowned. Grown men raved into madness. In desperation, the elders carved inscriptions into a great stone slab and planted it at the site, hoping to lock the spirit away. But now the characters were faded, moss-covered, and barely discernible, like dried blood forgotten on stone. One evening, Kai ventured to the grave. The slab loomed, cold and damp beneath his hand. A chilling current surged through him. In the wind, he heard a woman's sobs, mingled with words that sliced the silence. Wronged and unavenged. The blood has not been cleansed. The earth beneath him quivered. Tiny fissures cracked around the slab's base. Kai recoiled in terror. Just then, a dark shape darted behind him. Turning sharply, he saw a murder of crows descend upon the grave, their beaks striking at the soil as if trying to claw it open. Their cries sounded less like birds, and more like grief-stricken wails. Heart-hammering, Kai fled, but even as he ran, the words pursued him, echoing in his skull. Those who sowed sin must pay. Blood for blood. That very night, another villager was found dead. Madame Mai, one of the few who still knew the truth of the grave, was discovered lifeless in her yard. Her eyes bulged wide, fixed on the kapok tree at the village gate, while blood trickled from her lips in a long, red streak. Open Book Chapter 4. The inverted figure on the kapok tree. The night after Madame Mai's death, Ngoc An fell into suffocating silence. No one dared step outside once the sun had set. The only sounds were the drawn-out howls of dogs and the sharp hiss of the wind weaving through the crumbling rooftops. For the villagers, the kapok tree at the village gate was no longer a symbol of strength. It had become a pillar connecting the living and the dead. Haunted by both fear and compulsion, Kai decided to approach the tree at midnight. The moon hung pale and thin, like a blood-stained veil, casting an anemic glow over the dirt path. As Kai drew near, he noticed something swaying above. He froze. Hanging upside down from one of the higher branches was a human figure, its long hair spilling downward to obscure the face. The body slowly spun in the night wind, the rope creaking like the strained groan of the hanged. With trembling steps, Kai edged closer. A gust tore the hair aside, and he nearly choked on his scream. The swollen, purplish face staring back at him was unmistakable. It was Luong, the hunter already buried days ago. Kai's throat constricted. The corpse rotated again, and this time its eyes rolled to meet his. Its mouth split open, dribbling black blood as a rasping voice seeped out. The living must pay in blood? Kai stumbled back, but the roots of the kapok seemed to writhe, holding him in place. All around, dark shadows emerged from the ground. Dozens of them, with blazing red eyes. They circled him, silent yet seething with hatred. Panicked, Kai turned to flee, but each step dragged as though the earth itself sought to consume him. The hanging corpse seemed to follow, the rope stretching endlessly, its body dragging closer and closer. When Kai finally collapsed onto the dirt path, gasping, he looked back, and the figure was gone. The kapok tree stood bare and silent, but smeared across its trunk were 5 bloody handprints, dripping fresh crimson that fell, drop by drop, onto the soil below. From the distant communal hall, a drumbeat echoed, slow, heavy, mournful, a countdown to catastrophe. Open Book Chapter 5. The Midnight Drum of the Dead. That night, Ngoc An was suffocated in dread. Doors were bolted, oil lamps extinguished. No villager dared peek outside. Yet when midnight struck, the sound of the communal drum shattered the silence. Thump, thump, thump. Each beat pounded like a dead heart forcing itself back to life. Lying in bed, Kai's skin prickled with cold sweat. He knew the drum was real, but how could it be? When the communal hall had long been abandoned, and the drum left to rot decades ago? Unable to endure the terror gnawing at him, Kai wrapped a cloak around his shoulders and stepped out into the night. The village lay in utter darkness, the moon casting a sickly pall over the moss-stained rooftops. Each echo of the drum drew him toward the hall. The closer he came, the faster the rhythm beat, as though urging him on. At the courtyard, Kai froze. The old drum stood upright, but its hide was slick with fresh blood dripping to the floor. A bloody handprint stained its surface, still glistening wet. From within the hall, a pale green fire flickered to life. Shadows emerged, lining themselves in rows like an eerie assembly of the dead. Their backs faced Kai. None moved, none spoke. The drum thundered again, but this time, the sound reverberated from inside Kai's chest. He clutched at his ribs, gasping, as though something alien was beating in place of his heart. A gravelly voice rose from within the hall, dripping with venom. Those who conceal their crimes, blood will summon blood, souls will summon souls. The building shuddered violently. The rows of figures turned in unison. Their faces were not human, they were the grotesque visages of corpses. Eyes bulging, mouths frozen mid-scream. Kai tried to scream, but his voice was lost in the rising cacophony. The drum ceased, only to be replaced by the pounding of countless hands slapping the floor in unison. A macabre rhythm of the grave. And then she appeared, from the heart of the hall. A woman drenched in blood, her hair streaming, her face ashen, her eyes blazing like two coals of hellfire. Step by step, she moved toward Kai. Open book chapter 6. The bloodstains that could not be washed away. After that night in the communal hall, Kai woke in a daze. He found himself lying in his room, the faint smell of incense lingering in the air. His mother sat by his side, her eyes clouded with worry. "Where did you go at midnight? They found you collapsed outside the hall. You could have died." Kai kept silent. He dared not speak of what he had seen. But when he looked down at his hands, his heart nearly stopped. Red stains still clung to his skin, the same blood from the drum. Terrified, he rushed to the village well, plunging his hands into the water, scrubbing furiously. The clear water quickly turned crimson. Yet no matter how he washed, the stains would not fade. Instead, they spread, soaking deeper into his flesh. Gasping, Kai peered into the water. The reflection was not his face, but that of a woman, hair dripping wet, eyes rolled white, staring into him. He fell back in horror, nearly tumbling into the well. From its depths came a whisper, sharp and cold. "You too are stained with blood. Karma cannot be cleansed." Word spread quickly. The well in the middle of the village had begun to flow with blood, its water red and foul with the stench of death. The villagers tried to fill it with earth and stones, but by dawn the water forced its way back, crimson as ever. That same night, terror struck again, at the home of Elder Kwam, who long ago had helped bury the cursed grave. His son woke screaming. The walls of their house were smeared with bloody handprints, hundreds of them. No matter how they scrubbed with ash, lime, or even burned the stains with fire, by morning the blood returned, darker and thicker. The villagers whispered, "These are not the hands of the living. The dead have found their way back." Kai stared at his own palms, realizing the truth. The stains were a mark. He had already been claimed by karma. That night, he heard a pounding at his door. Trembling, he peeked outside and froze. On the wall of his house, a bloody hand pressed against the wood, dragging slowly downward, as if to tear him from within. Chapter 7. The village rode into death. Haunted by blood and shadows, Kai resolved to leave Ngoc An. He believed that if he could just step beyond its borders, the curse would not follow. At dawn, he packed what little he could and slipped away, following the familiar red dirt road that wound out of the village. But that morning, the road felt different. Mist thickened, swallowing the horizon. The bamboo groves along the path whispered like countless voices murmuring secrets. The journey stretched on unnaturally. A road that should have taken less than an hour now seemed endless. And then, before him, appeared something impossible. A fork in the road that had never existed. One path veered left, into a forest so dark it swallowed the light. The other curved right, fading into a wall of pale mist. Uneasy, Kai turned back, but his heart stopped. The way behind him had vanished, swallowed by the same formless fog. He was trapped. Desperate, he chose the right path. Each step grew colder, the air thick with the stench of old blood. From ahead came the sound of shuffling feet, the slap of sandals against earth. Shapes emerged through the mist, a procession of villagers dressed in funeral whites. They walked in perfect silence, faces blank, eyes rolled to the whites. Each bore a small coffin on their shoulders, draped in dark red cloth. Kai pressed himself into the bamboo, holding his breath. The mourners passed, step by step, their rhythm echoing like the beat of a funeral drum. Then the last coffin lurched. A hand burst from within, pale and clawed, pointing straight at him. Kai's scream died in his throat. He bolted into the mist. But when he stumbled to a halt, his blood ran cold. Before him loomed the kapok tree at the village gate, its trunk stained crimson, a blood-soaked noose dangling from its branch. From all sides rose the sound of weeping, layer upon layer of voices. There is no escape from Ngoc An. Blood for blood, soul for soul. Kai collapsed, realizing the truth. The road did not lead to freedom. It led only deeper into death. Chapter 8. Erased History, the Truth Unearthed. After stumbling back to the kapok tree, Kai fainted, slipping into a nightmare of blood and fire. When he awoke, he found himself lying inside the dim hut of Madame Hugh, the eldest of the village. She sat by his side, her milky eyes heavy with secrets long kept. "You've seen it, haven't you?" she rasped. Kai's lips trembled. "I saw the funeral procession, the blood, the spirits." "Why? What happened here?" Madame Hugh drew a shuddering breath, tears welling. Ngoc An was never a peaceful place. This village was built on blood and on betrayal. She spoke of more than 50 years ago, when Ngoc An was but wilderness. Settlers came, greedy and ruthless. They discovered a secluded valley with the tomb of an ancient family. To seize the land and its treasures, they plundered the grave, looted the offerings, and buried alive a young woman who still clung to life within her coffin. That very night, the valley trembled, plague spread, infants died, cattle wasted, men went mad. To cover their crime, the elders fabricated the story of the stone of sealing and erased the truth from their records. The real history was buried in silence. Madame Hugh clutched Kai's hand, her voice breaking. "Your grandfather, he was among them. Don't you see? You cannot escape this. The blood of the guilty runs in you." Kai's world spun, the stains on his hands, the woman in the hall, the voices in the wind. It all came back to the same truth. Karma spares no one. Not even their descendants. Madame Hugh collapsed in sobs. "I am old, I've long awaited my punishment. But you and the others, will be dragged into this. No one can cleanse the blood of the wronged." At that moment, the shutters slammed open. A freezing gust howled in. The mat beneath Kai darkened with spreading stains. The blotches grew into the shape of a bloody hand, reaching toward him. From beyond, the funeral drum thundered again, urgent and relentless. The truth had been unearthed, and the noose of karma was tightening. Chapter 9. The Feast of Spirits, Banquet of Retribution. That night, Ngoc An was bathed in a strange glow. The moon hung red like a gaping wound, spilling its sickly light upon the rooftops. The air was thick with the stench of incense, blood, and damp earth, as if the entire village had become an open grave. Kai and Madame Hugh followed the sound of drums to the communal courtyard. What they saw froze the blood in their veins. The square was ablaze with unholy fire, and hundreds of figures in white funeral garb thronged the grounds. They feasted on bowls of raw flesh glistening crimson. They danced in circles to the rhythm of the death drums. Children with no faces laughed shrilly, mouths split wide to the ears. At the center stood a vast banquet table piled with skulls, bones, and brimming bowls of blood. Upon it rested a black coffin draped in red cloth. Each drumbeat made the coffin tremble, as though something inside clawed to be free. Madame Hugh fell to her knees, trembling. "The Feast of Retribution, it has begun." The crowd turned, hundreds of pale eyes fixed upon Kai. Silence smothered the night for one breath. Then the mob burst into ghastly laughter, shrieks echoing through the valley. The coffin lid creaked open. From within emerged a woman drenched in blood, hair spilling like a veil, her face pale as death, her eyes blazing like twin infernos. She raised her arm, and the horde of spirits collapsed to their knees, worshipping her as their sovereign. Her voice cracked the air, filled with rage. "You stole my land, you stole my life. Tonight, I return, to drown Ngoc An in blood." From every house, the living stirred. Villagers, their eyes blank, shuffled out in droves. As if bewitched, they walked into the square and took their seats among the dead. Silent and willing, Kai's breath caught. Before his eyes, the living and the dead shared one table, a banquet of vengeance. Above, the blood moon shattered, and scarlet rain fell, soaking the earth in a storm of retribution. Chapter 10. The Return from the Other Side. The Feast of Spirits raged until the third watch of the night. Kai hid behind the roots of the ancient banyan tree, his body trembling, breath ragged. He longed to flee, but every path out of the courtyard was blocked by the throng of the dead and the entranced living, all spinning in their macabre revelry. Then, from the far end of the square, a cry rose, mournful, piercing. The revel halted, heads turned. Through the haze of burning incense, a young man stepped into the firelight. His clothes hung in tatters, his body dripping with river mud. Kai's eyes widened in disbelief. It was Min, his childhood friend, the boy who had drowned in the river 10 years ago. Min moved slowly, each step leaving puddles of water that gleamed crimson. The spirits parted reverently, making way for him as though welcoming a herald of the underworld. Kai's voice cracked. "Min, is it really you?" Min lifted his face, his features twisted, his skin peeling to reveal bleached bone beneath. Yet his lips stretched into a hollow smile. "Kai, no one leaves Ngoc An. Not even me. Death did not free me, it dragged me back." Behind him came others, the drowned, the hanged, the buried alive, even the infants who had died before their first breath. One by one, the wronged returned, their eyes blazing with vengeance. At the head of the horde, the blood-drenched woman raised her hand, her voice cut like iron. "Those unburied, unsung, unforgiven, rise. Tonight, the blood of Ngoc An will be paid in full." The drum thundered, and the ground convulsed. Coffins split open, smoke poured forth, twisting into figures of the damned. The barrier between realms tore wide. Kai's knees buckled as he realized the truth. The dead had returned. Not for peace, but for retribution. Min turned to him, eyes weeping tears of blood. "Kai, you carry their bloodline. Unless you break the chain, you will become one of us." Before Kai could respond, Min's chest burst open. A torrent of thick red water gushed forth, drowning his voice in a scream that shook the valley. Chapter 11. The Fire in the Bottomless Well. After the night of the feast, Ngoc An was cloaked in an unnatural silence. No roosters crowed, no children laughed, not even the dogs howled. Instead, the village lay heavy beneath a pall, as though smothered by unseen hands. On his way back with Madame Hugh, Kai passed the old well in the village center, long since filled and abandoned. But now, to his horror, the well stood open once more, its mouth yawning black. From its depths surged a glow of red, and suddenly a pillar of green fire erupted, roaring skyward, needing no wood, no air, no fuel. The villagers gathered in terror, whispering, "The well burns, the spirits are rising. The curse has reached its end." Kai peered into the flames. Within the blaze, he saw them, distorted faces writhing. Children, women, elders, all clawing upward, their hands aflame yet unconsumed. They dragged themselves against the stone walls, desperate to escape. Madame Hugh clutched her chest, her voice a trembling rasp. This was where they discarded the bodies. Those not dead in the grave were dragged here, thrown in, sealed away. Now their fire has broken free. From the depths came a wail, grief and fury intertwined. The fire surged higher, its light sweeping across Ngoc An. In its glow, Kai saw every rooftop streaked with black blood, as if invisible corpses hung by the hundreds above each home. Then came the drums again, not from the hall, but booming from within the well itself. With each beat, the flames flared, ash and smoke blasting outward. A colossal hand, forged of blood and fire, burst from the depths, grasping the sky. Slowly it turned, its burning finger aimed directly at Kai. His breath caught. In his skull, 1,000 voices whispered in unison. "Ngoc An, the blood unpaid, you will pay it." Open Book Chapter 12. The Awakening of the Karma Demon. The green fire from the bottomless well roared higher, its glow staining the heavens. The ground shook beneath Ngoc An, the very earth groaning as though something monstrous clawed its way up from the abyss. The funeral drums pounded in unison with the howls of countless trapped souls. A requiem of madness that split the night apart. Kai stood frozen. Beside him, Madame Hugh collapsed to her knees, voice quaking. "It's too late. The karma demon has awakened." From the depths of the well rose a colossal shadow, grotesque and misshapen. It was no single being, but a fusion of the wronged, children's heads sprouting from women's torsos. Twisted faces overlapping, mouths gaping with screams and laughter at once. Its flesh was a tapestry of suffering, every inch crawling with faces locked in torment. But its eyes were pits of blazing fire, reflecting the faces of every villager in Ngoc An. Blood, sin, betrayal, all condensed into a gaze that burned with insatiable hunger. The demon roared, the sound shattered windows, toppled cattle dead in their pens, and splintered trees into kindling. Villagers crumpled to the earth, their mouths muttering gibberish, their minds shackled by terror. Kai tried to retreat, but his feet clung to the soil as though the earth itself had shackled him. A massive, blood-soaked hand reached out from the demon's body, its dozens of mouths shrieking in unison. "Descendant of the guilty, your blood shall repay our blood." Madame Hugh wept, clutching Kai's arm. "Kai, you are the key. You must sever the bloodline of sin, or the demon will consume us all." The demon's chest pulsed, each drumbeat hammering through the night. The air quivered, the sky blazed crimson as the moon cracked, spilling blood-red light across the valley. Kai stared into the inferno of its eyes, and in that moment he knew the karma demon had fully awakened. Chapter 13. The Price of Betrayal. The karma demon towered above Ngoc An, its patchwork body writhing with the screams of 100 imprisoned souls. Each wail drove the villagers into madness. Some clawed at their faces. Others slammed their heads against walls until blood streamed down. In the chaos, Madame Hugh's voice cut through, trembling with guilt. "Kai, you must know, it was not only murder that damned us. It was betrayal." When the spirit first rose, the elders of Ngoc An made a pact. To save themselves, they sacrificed their own people. They offered innocent blood to the demon in exchange for peace. Kai reeled, his heart pounded as her words struck. Betrayal, not just of strangers, but of their own kin. And his grandfather, one of those elders. The demon let out a thunderous roar. One of its monstrous hands crashed down upon a house, crushing it to splinters. A family's screams were cut short as their bodies were absorbed into its flesh. Moments later, their faces bulged grotesquely upon the demon's skin, wailing in eternal agony. The villagers fled in terror. But no matter which way they ran, the paths bent back to the kapok tree, where a blood-stained rope swung ceaselessly. Every escape led only deeper into the curse. Kai dropped to his knees, voice raw. If betrayal sowed this curse, what must be done to end it? Through the haze, Min appeared once more. His drowned body dripped endlessly, his face half decayed, yet his voice was steady. "Kai, the price of betrayal can only be paid in blood. The blood of the betrayer's line. Either you give yourself, or the demon will claim every soul of Ngoc An." The drums thundered, each beat a hammer of doom. Kai stared into Min's hollow eyes, grief tightening his chest. The truth was clear. The end of the curse demanded a sacrifice. A choice that no one else could make. Chapter 14. The Ancestors' Shadows, a plea for salvation. The demon's roar shook the earth. Cracks split open across the ground, black voids yawning wide. From them crawled forth shadows of the dead, gaunt figures caked in soil. Eyes rolled white in death. Madame Hugh gasped in horror. "Those are our ancestors, the ones who sinned, and the ones who were forced to betray." Among them, Kai's blood froze as he recognized a face, his grandfather's. His eyes were bloodshot, his mouth dripping with blood. Yet instead of snarling, he whispered hoarsely, "Kai, end this. We were wrong, all of us were wrong." More voices rose, the shadows of the elders and the sacrificed alike, their cries interwoven. "We are cursed. Free us. The debt must be paid, not with treachery, but with true sacrifice." Kai trembled, tears spilling down his cheeks. The hands of the dead reached upward, not to drag him down, but to push him away, urging him not to follow their path. The karma demon shrieked, its grotesque faces twisting in fury. "There is no escape. Blood betrayed, blood wronged. All will be consumed." Madame Hugh clutched Kai, weeping. "Do you see? Even our ancestors beg you not to repeat their sins. But karma will not relent. Only you can break the cycle, or all will be devoured." All around them, houses crumbled into dust. The demon's bloody hands crushed villagers into its body, their souls shrieking as they fused into its skin. The air was filled with screams, both of the condemned and the regretful dead. Kai's chest heaved, the sight of his grandfather pleading, the chorus of ancestors crying out, seared into his heart. He understood. Their plea was not for survival, but for redemption. Above, the blood moon spun, its crimson light sweeping over the valley. It was as though the heavens themselves waited for Kai's decision. Chapter 15. The Blood-Red Moon Night. That night, the moon bled. It hung swollen and crimson in the sky, drenching Ngoc An in a sickly red light. Every rooftop, every wall, every tree looked like it was painted in gore. The entire village had become a battlefield between the living, the dead, and the curse that bound them all. The karma demon loomed in the center, its massive body writhing with the shrieks of countless faces. Each beat of its chest drum echoed through the earth, a death knell that rattled bones and split the heavens. Beneath the kapok tree, Kai knelt, his blood dripping steadily into the dirt. He raised his eyes to the moon, hearing Min's warning, hearing the pleas of his ancestors. Only true sacrifice could sever the chain of betrayal. Madame Hugh clutched him desperately, her voice cracking. "No, child, if you do this, the bloodline will end, and so will you." But Kai shook his head. There was no fear left in his gaze, only resolve. If one life can end this curse, then let it be mine. The blood moon burned brighter. The wind howled, and the drumbeats quickened. One of the demon's monstrous hands reached down to seize him. The villagers, mindless, hollow-eyed, knelt in unison, their fates tied to what Kai would choose. With a cry, Kai drew the ritual blade he had taken from the hall. Moonlight flashed along its edge. He slashed his palm open, spilling blood freely onto the roots of the kapok tree. The earth convulsed. The demon shrieked, its body splitting as flames of crimson light wrapped around it. The faces on its skin cracked and peeled, screaming as they dissolved into the storm. Kai's blood glowed as it fell, burning against the soil. It spread in radiant streams, entwining the demon, binding it in searing chains. The monster thrashed, but its howls turned into cries of agony. Above, the moon shattered, breaking into fragments that rained down as drops of blood-red light. But this time, the rain did not burn, it cleansed. Kai swayed, his vision dimming. The world spun, yet as he collapsed, he smiled faintly. He had given himself to the curse, and in that moment, he knew he had broken it. Chapter 16. The Ancient Temple and the Sutra of Restless Souls. After the night of the blood-red moon, the karma demon shattered in a roar that split the heavens. Souls once bound within it scattered like smoke, their cries fading into the void. Ngoc An lay silent beneath the dawn. The kapok tree stood charred, the well sealed in ash. Kai's body, limp and pale, lay cradled in Madame Hugh's arms. Yet Hugh's tears carried no relief. She whispered hoarsely, "No, this is not the end. The demon has fallen, but the souls have not been freed. Without release, the curse will return. There is only one way left, the Sutra of Restless Souls." Hidden in the ancient temple, deep in the forest lay a temple abandoned for centuries. Locals spoke of it only in whispers. Once, a revered monk had guarded it, but when the first calamity struck Ngoc An, he vanished without a trace. Since then, no one dared approach. For every night the bell tolled on its own, though no hand struck it. Guided by Hugh, Kai dragged his weakened body into the forest. The deeper they went, the quieter the world became. No birds, no insects, only the hollow rhythm of a wooden fish echoing through the mist. At last, the temple emerged, its roof sagging, statues cracked and broken, yet the eyes of the stone Buddhas glowed faintly. Watching, on the altar, covered in thick dust, lay a sutra wrapped in red cloth. Dark stains seeped through, still wet, still reeking of blood. With trembling hands, Kai unwrapped it. The pages within were not filled with words, but with drawings. Distorted faces shackled in chains of flame, each one shifting, each one whispering faintly. Suddenly, the bell tolled, a deafening knell that shook the temple. The doors slammed shut, darkness flooded in. From the sutra, the faces lifted their eyes, staring straight into Kai's soul. A voice rose from nowhere, deep and resonant. "The blood has been paid, but the souls remain. Descendant of sinners, will you bear their torment? Will you chant the sutra, knowing it will tear your soul apart?" Madame Hugh collapsed into a bow, weeping. "Kai, this is the last path. If you read it, the spirits will be freed, but their grief and rage will consume you. You will never escape. The sutra dripped blood onto his hands. Kai's gaze hardened. He knew the choice before him was not life or death, but salvation or damnation. Chapter 17. Blood spilled for atonement. Inside the ruined temple, the wind howled through broken tiles. The Sutra of Restless Souls quivered in Kai's hands, its red wrappings weeping streams of blood onto the cracked stone floor. The stains spread like serpents, curling and twisting as though alive. Kai sat cross-legged before the altar, forcing his shaking hands to open the first page. The letters were not ink but thick, black blood, writhing across the parchment. Each line radiated cold so bitter it seemed to freeze his bones. Madame Hugh knelt beside him, sobbing. Kai, if you read this, your veins will burst, your soul will shatter, but if you don't, the curse will never die. Kai closed his eyes, drew a ragged breath, and began to chant. At once the temple shook. The lamps inverted, flames burning downward, each syllable clawed the air, answered by the cries of countless trapped spirits. Their voices joined his, a chorus of grief echoing like thunder. Blood seeped from Kai's eyes, ears, nose, and mouth, dripping onto the sutra. His body convulsed, as though every vein threatened to burst. Yet still he chanted, voice torn but unyielding. From the shadows, shapes emerged, the wronged souls of Ngoc An. No longer did they scream in fury. Now they wept, their translucent forms bowing. Tears rained onto the floor, mingling with Kai's blood. Among them stood Min, Kai's childhood friend. Half his face was rotted away, yet his eyes were clear. He nodded once, a sorrowful smile upon his lips. Beyond him, Kai saw his grandfather kneeling, broken, whispering, "Grandson, you've carried all our sins. Forgive us." The temple blazed with light. The spirits rose, dissolving into smoke that drifted skyward. The funeral drums stilled, the wails ceased, silence returned. Kai slumped forward, the sutra falling from his grasp. It burst into ashes of glowing red, scattering across the temple floor. Blood pooled around him, mixing with the last flicker of flame. Madame Hugh clutched his body, sobbing until her voice cracked. "You've done it. You've saved us, by paying with your blood." Outside, the first light of dawn pierced the forest canopy. For the first time in centuries, Ngoc An knew peace, but Kai's body lay still. His spirit spent beyond return. Chapter 18. The Fall of Ngoc An Village. After Kai collapsed within the ancient temple, the world grew unnaturally still. The kapok tree no longer groaned, the well no longer burned, and the death drums had fallen silent. Yet the silence was not salvation, it was the prelude to destruction. The earth beneath Ngoc An trembled. The villagers screamed as rooftops cracked and crumbled, moss-eaten tiles raining down. The ground split into fiery fissures, glowing red like the throats of open graves. Entire homes sank into the earth as if swallowed by a great beast. Madame Hugh carried Kai's lifeless body through the chaos, crying out, "Run, the debt is paid, but the land will claim itself." Ngoc An was built on blood, now it must return to the soil. Above, the blood moon fractured into a storm of scarlet mist, swirling like a vortex over the village. One by one, families were dragged into the rifts, their cries vanishing into the abyss. At the village's heart, the kapok tree convulsed, its massive roots tore free, dragging with them the bones of hundreds long buried beneath. With a final thunderous crack, the tree collapsed, leaving behind a gaping chasm that devoured the last remnants of Ngoc An. Madame Hugh staggered to the temple steps, clutching Kai close. Tears streaked her wrinkled face as she whispered, "Ngoc An lived by blood, and so it must die in blood." Moments later, the earth split wide and swallowed them whole. When dawn broke, there was no trace of Ngoc An. In its place lay a barren valley, veiled in mist. No birds sang, no insects stirred, only the wind blew, carrying with it the faint, metallic tang of blood. The village's name was erased from maps. To outsiders, it became nothing more than a whispered tale of a place that vanished in a single bloodstained night. Chapter 19. The Last to Pay. When Ngoc An sank into the earth, the valley was swallowed in silence. No homes, no voices, no laughter remained, yet karma lingered still, unfinished. Madame Hugh was among the few who survived the collapse. She wandered the barren valley, carrying only memories of Kai and the villagers. At night, the silence pressed heavy, broken only by faint echoes of drums that seemed to rise from the depths of the soil. One evening, she approached the stream where Luang's corpse had first been found. The water ran clear, but in its depths glimmered streaks of red. Leaning closer, she gasped. The reflection staring back was not her own, but the faces of the dead. Luang, Mai, Min, and Kai. Their eyes were hollow, their gazes unyielding. A voice seeped from the current, low and cold. The last debt remains, and it is yours. Tears welled in Hugh's eyes. She knew the truth, though she had not wielded the blade. Her silence had been complicity. She had hidden the sins of the elders, allowing the curse to fester. She was the last thread tying Ngoc into its guilt. As dusk bled into night, she drew from her sleeve the ritual blade Kai had once held. Her hands trembled, but her gaze was steady. Kai, you gave your life and soul. Now let me give mine, to end what should have ended long ago. The knife flashed in the fading light. With one motion, she drew it across her throat. Blood spilled into the stream, spreading like crimson blossoms upon the water. The surface rippled, the faces dissolved, fading at last. Only the pale moon remained, reflected in silence. Hugh collapsed upon the bank, her face serene, her eyes closed as though in sleep. The wind fell still, the drums ceased. For the first time, true quiet descended on the valley. That night, no spirits cried, no shadows moved. For the first time in generations, the land was free, but none dared come close. Outsiders who passed the valley would only whisper its cursed name. The Valley of Retribution. Chapter 20. Karma never ends. With Madame Hugh's blood soaking into the stream, the Valley of Ngoc An fell utterly silent. The curse seemed broken at last. No more drums, no more screams, no more shadows clawing at the earth. The land lay barren, wrapped in eternal mist. Years passed. The village's name was erased from maps. To most, it became no more than a hushed legend, a warning told in fragments around firesides. Beware the land that vanished in a single night of blood. But the soil remembered. The wind still carried the faint tang of iron. And on nights when the moon swelled red, travelers who strayed too close swore they heard it, the slow, mournful thrum of a drum. Decades later, a team of archaeologists ventured into the valley. Digging beneath the cracked earth, they unearthed tangled skeletons bound in rusted chains. At the center lay a shattered stone slab, its inscription barely legible. Greater than, blood for blood, soul for soul. Karma forgets nothing, it only waits. That night, one of the team vanished without a trace. His colleagues searched desperately, finding only footprints leading to the stream, and water that glowed faintly red under the moon. In the mist, some swore they saw him, a lone figure standing beneath the ghost of a kapok tree long turned to ash. His face was blurred by blood, his eyes glowing faintly. Kai. The team abandoned their dig, never to return. From then on, locals avoided the valley, calling it a place that devours the living and chains the dead. And still, when the blood moon rises, the drums echo faintly from deep underground. The cries of the wronged whisper through the fog. Blood must repay blood, souls must repay souls. Karma never ends, it only waits for the next. Ngoc An Village had vanished. The valley was left with nothing but mist and ashes. Yet on nights of the blood moon, the sound of the communal drums still rose from the depths, mingling with the mournful cries echoing from the earth. They say that if anyone dares set foot in that valley, their reflection will vanish from the water, replaced by the faces of the dead. And once the drum of the dead calls, karma will open its eyes. For one truth never changes. Blood repays blood, soul repays soul. Karma does not end, it only waits for the next.
Like and subscribe to Whispering Dark Tales for more chilling ghost